Hello and welcome back to the return and build of the Keelcraft Ladybird. After spending a few days putting to right the results of a dead stick landing and damage to an engine, which is now fixed thankfully, it's time to return to a little bit of balsa bashing. And having cracked on last time and finished the fin area, quite a complicated design but a very satisfying one to make, especially now that it's completed, it's time to turn my attention to the horizontal stabilizer. And because this is going to be radio control, I will have to modify this design from the free flight version. Let's have a close look at what we have here. We have a removable tail surface, a tongue and a tube to take a hardwood dowel, and a pin to hold the whole thing in place with an elastic band. It's clearly designed to be knock-offable, and if you've ever flown free flight models, you know that that's a handy thing to have. You can't control obviously where they go, and if you have a downwind landing, that tends to be at some pace. And the ability for the model to take an impact like that without any serious damage is greatly helped if the flying surfaces can be knocked off. We don't need that, however we do need an elevator, and what I propose doing is, instead of using this trailing edge, which is a cross section here, I'm going to use this and a piece of 1/4 inch square that the ribs will locate into, and then this will be a working elevator on the rear. I think this is going to be quite a pitch sensitive model because the length of the fuselage is relatively short, and that tends to make the models more pitch sensitive. So having some elevator control through radio assist will be very helpful. A fellow club member has flown this as a free flight model, and he said that was always an issue with it, so he had actually built in an adjustable elevator that he could set to allow a finesse in the trimming of the free flight version. So the next thing I'm going to do is get some clear food wrap over this, and we'll start getting it set up ready for the build. Here we go then. So it's now pinned down, or the leading edge and the trailing edge is pinned down, and these ribs have been dry fitted into notches made in the trailing edge. Now, because they have a symmetrical profile which isn't flat, I've needed to pack up the rear and pack up the leading edge. It's a little bit like trying to plait spaghetti, I'll be honest with you, getting it all set up. So what I'm going to do, I'm happy that these are in the right location. I'm going to start at this end, and I'm going to start by gluing T5 in place, and then working my way along, lining them up as I go. I've removed the hardwood dowel. That'll be added later on because this is going to be a permanent structure or permanent attachment to the fuselage, unlike the original design. So that's glued. Let's line this up. Gets a little bit more secure with each part that's glued. That's T4. Now T3 is the first one, which has the hardwood dowel running through, and that actually aids because it has marked on it the centre section, and I can use the crosshairs to line this up. Let's get this, come that way a little bit. Happy with that. Glue in the rear. And the leading edge. Because it's so small, there's no spars in the structure. All the strength is with the leading and trailing edge, and for that reason I've discarded some of the wood that was in the kit, and I've selected some that's a little bit heavier, but it's substantially stronger than the wood that I had left. Now these two need to be glued together, but the most important one to add is this one first. That's T2. And there'll be a gusset in the corner here by way of the tongue, which attaches it to the fuselage. I managed to glue myself there. There you go. It's amazing how CA glue bonds so well to skin and sometimes refuses to bond to what you're trying to work with. Such is life. Now there's a slight taper to these ribs, so that means the packing isn't adequate, and I'm just adjusting it by eye. I could have put a slither, but I'm thinking it only needs something like 1/64 under there, and I'm doing it by just easing off the grip of this pin. And then the final one is here, and I'm going to just sear along the top, and when it's lifted I'll add more glue to the other side. So that's that shape. Let's put this trailing edge in, trailing edge tip in. Needs just a smidgen taken off there. And I find these nail files really useful. My daughter passed on some that she'd finished with. She likes doing nail art, and I love them. They're really good. So much so that she buys me a few extra when she goes to the nail shop. That's just nipping a little bit there. Push that in. And I'm putting this halfway between the top and the bottom, which I can just about see there. There we go. Now it's my intention, that'll actually be cut off this piece here. It's my intention that the elevator will be one piece added to the rear. So that's effectively glued. Let's remove it and see how it's come out. Oh, a little bit of glue gone onto the... There we go. I'm fairly happy with that. And although there's no additional strength imparted, no extra ribs, it is actually quite firm. I simply think because it's such a small piece. So I'll do the other one, and then the next part that you'll see will be when I join them both onto the fuselage. We'll pause it there until that's done. Here we have it then. This is the horizontal stabilizer made. It's not in final position. I'm not convinced about the angle, and this rod that goes through, there'll need to be a little bit of fine tuning to ensure that everything's lined up square. But there's the elevator that'll be hinged on, and I'm sure that'll give adequate control. Overall, it's cracking on there. So thanks for watching. If you haven't already done so, could you please subscribe, and then you can follow the rest of this journey along with the other model making adventures. And if you don't mind, give me a thumbs up, and that really does help the algorithm and spreads the word of this model making. So if you can, get out and fly. If you can't, let's get creative. It's at least 50% of the hobby. Bye now.